By 2030, we would like to be perceived not only as the national champion, but also as a emerging yet partially arrived global leader in this space. And you can define that or look at it from a number of different perspectives. The most important one for me is a customer perspective. If the customers in those markets, recognize the capabilities of energy and are a clear advocate of the services that we provide relative to other participants in that market, that is a good sign of being a global leader.
Hey SpaceWatchers, this is Space Café Radio, your channel about trends, awesome events and interesting people in the space sector. I'm your host, Thorsten Grüning, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, and for that interview I met with Martijn Blanken, CEO of NEO Space Group, during the Connecting the World from the Skies conference in Riyadh. We discussed NSG's mission to become a global leader, emphasizing customer-centric services in satellite communication and space technology. Martijn elaborates on the company's innovation in AI, geospatial technologies, and the strategic importance of global partnerships in line with Saudi Arabia's future strategic vision leading up to 2030. Enjoy this episode. Hey SpaceWatchers, we are here today at the Connecting the World from the Skies conference in Riyadh, and I have the great pleasure to sit together with the CEO of the NEO Space Group, Martijn Blanken. Martijn, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. And you?
I'm doing fine.
It's the middle of winter and it's nice and sunny outside. Could be worse.
Indeed. Let's dig into the topic. Yesterday you have been on the panel and you emphasized that technology must serve a higher purpose. Can you elaborate on how NSG ensures its innovations such as AI, powered network optimization and geospatial technologies are aligned with this philosophy in practice?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to elaborate. The key thing I was trying to get across is that technology is always a means to an end. It should never be an end in itself. I've been in this industry now 7 months, and it has struck me that on average, I've run into more people than in my past life who tend to treat technology for the sake of technology. And often it is really cool. But it doesn't.
Welcome to the space industry.
Exactly. It's not always clear what problem it is trying to serve or what demand it is trying to address. So I think, given the fact that we are a startup, when we are building a company pretty much from scratch, you really have to start with customers you're trying to serve as the beginning of your journey and then work your way ultimately down to technology. So part of your question was, again, how does artificial intelligence, for example, as a technology help to meet a demand? In satellite communications, the services provided to users are getting more and more complex. Many participants in the space industry are talking about multi-orbit, multi-frequency, multi-device services with higher resilience, higher availability. It's very seldom addressed by just using one single technology or one single satellite. So it's often a combination. You become almost a systems integrator more than anything else. And the question is, where do you solve that problem? Do you solve it at the satellite operator level or do you serve it at a service provider level? And what we have decided to do is to split the two roles very clearly. So part of our organization is focused on providing compelling solutions to end customers. We started with the in-flight communication services, where we serve airlines with high bandwidth services, including traffic management, where they have a level of control over the experience of the customers itself. You don't solve that at a satellite level. You solve that at a service level by combining different technologies and provide that into something that is meaningful to the customer. And artificial intelligence can help you with that. So if certain capacity is required and it is not available on satellite A, you want to dynamically switch before the problem occurs to an alternative satellite. And artificial intelligence could help with those kind of things and many things more.
Thank you very much for this insights. What I hear is your vast experience coming from the telecom sector, because it's client-driven services you pull out there, and exactly the opposite where space comes from, where commercialization of space is part in this kind of evolution where we are. So that's refreshing to hear. And the company, NSG, is now 6 months after the establishment. What measurable progress have been achieved in key areas like, as we mentioned, satellite communication, Earth observation, positioning, navigation, timing, PNT, all of these capabilities that you have on your agenda, which are massive.
Yeah, look, it's fair to say that we haven't progressed in all areas at the same pace. For instance, the PNT space, we have very consciously deprioritized that a little bit because we can only do so much at the same time. Focus really has been on establishing a footprint in the downstream SATCOM market and in particular in the aviation vertical. I think it is quite impressive what the team have done is that before actually going live, we don't have any live services yet, but they've already signed up 6 airlines now and have committed over sort of 350 aircrafts in these contracts. That requires more than just a good story. You need to be able to demonstrate that you've got capability. And we do that in collaboration with some of our partners. And it's quite exciting to see that we win the trust of these airlines, also in the context of the search of some other players in this industry.
Are we talking about local airlines or international airlines?
Yeah, good one. No, we have announced 2 airlines publicly. One is Turkish Airlines. The other one is Thai Airways, which are clearly not local. Can't talk about the other airlines, but look, it would not be a rocket scientist to assume that there might be actually a local airline involved. But the fact that they are making good progress is very encouraging. The second part, I've spoken to you previously, that we will operationalize and commercialize SES-1, which is a geostationary satellite that has been in orbit for quite a while, but never was commercialized. Won't go into the reasons why, but it wasn't too difficult of a problem to solve. So we're ready to put that asset to work, if you will.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was, as far as I understood, the ground segment, which was missing at large. And that's something that you can provide now, or you will provide now?
Yes, we have built 2 ground segments in Europe, and we have finalized the construction of the ground segments here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the ground segments are in place, and the first services, commercial services, will go live in March of next year. The first demonstration services will happen late December, early January. So yeah, you need ground stations to make that happen. So we are weeks away from getting that done. I think that is decent progress. In the geospatial area, there are 2 important developments. One is we completed the acquisition of a company called Tacnia ETS, which is a geospatial insights provider. So they use imagery from all kinds of satellite Earth observation image providers, optical, radar, up spectral.
That was the local development spin-off together with Digital Globe.
There was an entity called Tacnia, and Tacnia had a daughter called Tacnia Space, but also had Tacnia ETS. So this is one of the subsidiaries of the Tacnia group. We completed that acquisition, and our job is to help them to become more successful, not to intervene with what they've been doing. They have been able to establish a compelling customer set. And if the feedback from their customers is anything to go by, it seems like they're able to address a meaningful demand in the market. But at the same time, we're also getting feedback about things that they could do better. And our job as a new space group is to enable them to do that. One of the things that we've rebranded Tacnia ETS, so it's now called Energy Geospatial Services, and give them sort of that new look and feel. CST have issued a tender in April of this year for the permit of a Earth observation wholesale marketplace. We responded to the tender and we were awarded. That means that in April of next year, we will launch that marketplace here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And the idea is that everyone, government, but also the private sector, could use that marketplace to get access to all archive data, but also a task up to 80 partners with their satellites so that they can get the imagery that they want to support their needs. That the customers of that marketplace are going to be downstream service providers like NSG Geospatial Services or like Geotech, but it could also be large companies like Aramco who have such impressive capabilities in-house that they buy the imagery directly from the marketplace. So that's what we're doing. We will acquire a company to achieve that outcome. It's too complex to build it from the ground up, and that is something we will announce in 2 weeks' time. It's good progress there as well.
I not chase you on that now, but the license was my next logical question on that. So can you elaborate a bit more? So what does it mean? This marketplace for me sounds a bit abstract at the moment. So how can I envision it?
So what you can imagine that if you are a service provider to a particular industry, let's say the insurance industry, and you want to help them make assessments post a weather event, a storm or an earthquake by using satellite imagery, you could do 2 things. You can just provide the raw data or you give them real insights. So what I mean by real insights is that you look at the situation before the event and after the event and help them to understand what the changes are and how that could potentially impact the policies that they have with their customers in that particular area of interest. If you are the Ministry of Forestry, you want to get proactive notification where you need to maintain some of your forests or where you need to address some issues with your crop health. Yeah, one thing is you get just the raw photos, but if you get a service that uses multiple data sources, it could be satellite, it could be aerial, it could be in situ, but them all combined to that particular area of interest. And it helps you to understand what actions you need to take. These services, you can choose to interact directly with all the satellite imagery providers and with airplanes and with drone providers, or you go to a marketplace and use that as an interface to the world of Earth observation imagery.
What differentiates your upcoming service with services that we see in this market already? Because this fusion of data that you just mentioned is something what we see in all major Earth observation companies, the planets of the world and the Live EUs or the Up 42 in Europe.
If you go to most of these players, you get a subset of the solution because they all belong to, if you go to Up 42, you will not get Maxar data. You will not get planet data.
Good point,
if you go to Black Sky, you will not get certain providers. So you get a point solution. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is a way to describe it. They got a hammer and they're looking for a nail. Ultimately, what you want is an outcome. And as the provider of these insights, you don't want to be beholden to a particular solution. If you want to combine optical or very high resolution with radar, with hyperspectral, and you want to fuse that data over time, you need some platform that can help you to do the data management and the data processing. Or the basic data management, the basic processing will be done by the marketplace. And then you, as a service provider, can run your algorithms that are relevant to your use case, to your customer, to your industry. But you don't have to interact with many different providers. It's all done on that platform. And because the market buys these imagery in volume, there's likely going to be a commercial advantage to you as well. It's not just a commercial advantage. It's also the fact that the data management will be done and some basic data processing. But hey, if you are so sophisticated that you can deal with raw data and you do all the data management, the author correction, the georeferencing, you want to all do it yourself, fine. The marketplace doesn't force you to take a level of processed data, but it gives you an option depending on your capabilities.
Interesting. There's a certain subset of companies or entities, we don't want to call them companies, that have an interest in raw data. That brings me to my next point. So are we talking about commercial available data, or are we talking about also classified data that you're dealing with for the security and defense entities, in the country or globally? So that's another area to look into.
It's theoretically both. Clearly, you need to make sure that if you make certain data available that is classified, that's not up to marketplace to determine whether it's classified or not. It's the provider of the imagery who provide that. So if they want to provide classified data via the marketplace to their end customer, the marketplace job is to make sure that label will be preserved and that data cannot be shared by other users. But that's a simple technology solution. There we come back again. Technology can fix that. It's the policy that matters. And then the technology can support that policy.
It's also a question about your mandate in that. So if this license you got includes defense data or classified data as well.
That is not for the platform of the marketplace to decide. It's for the producer of the data and the client to decide how they're going to obtain it.
What about the intelligence? Same applies like before. So it's the customer-provider relationship. Because what we see these days is we have, as you mentioned, Earth observation data is in volume, freely available. We talk about Copernicus data and more of those. The juice is in the intelligence. What are we doing with this data? What do I see here, which wasn't there yesterday or 10 minutes ago? Whatever kind of intelligence will apply. Is it something that will be part of the marketplace as well, or?
Basic capabilities. So there will be two aspects. There will be data management activities, so the georeferencing, the geocorrection, the autocorrection. That's sort of making the data ready to be processed. And there will be some basic processing capabilities, but we very deliberately, as the marketplace, don't want to be doing the job for the actual service providers who will run their algorithms themselves. I need to talk about object identification, change detection. There will be some basic capabilities in the marketplace, but not enough to provide an answer to the customer. Ultimately, if you're an insurance company, you want to have somebody who gives you an answer to a specific question. That is not something that the marketplace will do. There will be ample room for the service providers to add their value. Because you want to be neutral, or we want to be neutral. We're impartial. We don't care who we work with on the supply side, and we don't care who we work with on the service provider side. But it's an aggregation point. But if with any marketplace, it scales, and the benefits is in the scaling effect and the ease of use, both for a supplier of the data as well as for the user of the data.
Yesterday on your panel, you mentioned also software-defined networks. I think what goes back also to your own heritage. And as we know today, software-defined networks are central to modern space operations. The days of bent pipes are gone, especially in the area we are talking about. How is industry leveraging these systems to address the challenges in sectors like aviation or the maritime sector?
let's pick aviation as an example. Again, it depends on the use case. There will be carriers or airlines who say, I just want to have a lot of bandwidth in my plane. And I'm going to make that available to whoever wants to use it. And we're not even talking about whether they want to charge for it or they want to provide it as a free service. There will be other airlines who require a level of, call it traffic management, who want to provide a different user experience depending on the class at which the passenger is traveling. Or they want to prevent certain passengers to use certain content. Let me be very descriptive here. In this part of the world, not all content is deemed to be consumable by everyone. Western societies tend to be a little bit more liberal. But if you are an airline from a Muslim country, you don't want all the content in the world that I can sit next to you on a plane and go on YouTube and consume whatever content I feel comfortable with. You need a traffic management solution to do that. That is software. Who does that? That software needs to be written and that software needs to be configured specific to policies that an end customer provides. That is what we will aim to provide. So our value proposition is not our bandwidth is more beautiful than yours, or our bandwidth is a little bit faster than yours. Clearly, you need to meet minimum thresholds, but our user experience is better than other providers in the market. That's how we aim to compete.
AI, this is another topic. It's increasingly critical in collision avoidance when we talk about space assets and other operational tasks. Can you share some specific developments or upcoming AI applications that you might be implementing?
And in this case, energy is not super different from most. As a downstream service provider, we want to use technology that serves the end customer. That could even be a combination of satellite technology and terrestrial technology. Take, for example, the oil and gas sector. When you have offshore oil platforms, some of them are connected to the shore via microwaves, but have satellite communication as backup. The end customer is not particularly interested whether it will be one or the other. They just want to have an ironclad guarantee that it is up most of the time, because the more certainty they have around the connectivity and the availability of connectivity to the offshore sites, the more they can rely on technology on the platform, the less they have to send people out there to do work. And it's for them a way not only to save costs, but also improve the productivity. So our job is to seamlessly switch between these various technologies. Again, that is a software-defined activity. And if I want to make a fancy statement, and I'm a marketeer, I call it AI. It is an artificial intelligence. It is a non-manual. These are a set of algorithms that I have programmed based on a set of policies that will deliver a certain outcome to the customer. And I can even train that algorithm by feeding it with certain use cases so that it starts to behave more and more predictable and it guarantees the best possible outcome to the customer. So these are things that we're actively working on as we speak. Some of it we do ourselves. Some of it we do in collaboration with some of the local universities here. We signed a very interesting partnership with the King Abdulaziz University for Science and Technology, KAUST, and it's a wealth of capabilities there. And I think in order to get this space ecosystem off the ground in Saudi Arabia, it will have to be a partnership between government, private sector, the universities, and from an education perspective, and the research centers, which sometimes universities are as well. And we try to play a catalyst in that ecosystem.
Let's talk about global partnerships now, taking a bit outside and investments. NSG is, and you mentioned it before, actively investing in local and international assets and seeking global partnerships. So how do these collaboration enhance your own NSG's competitive positioning? And are there any recent partnerships or acquisitions you'd like to highlight?
We've only done one acquisition to date. There are, rest assured, a few more in the pipeline, but for obvious reasons, I cannot talk about it. What I can talk about, for instance, if you look at the in-flight communication solution, our very important partner is a company in Paris called Display Interactive, who write that traffic management software, among other things, who also develop the GUIs, the user interfaces for the passengers in the plane. Because some airlines, again, they want you as a passenger to use your laptop or your iPad or your phone and use your own interface. Some airlines, they prefer to still give the airline look and feel. That GUI has to be developed. That's what Display Interactive is doing. We did not have those capabilities here in the kingdom. At least we were not aware of it. We looked around the world and found this company in Paris. Very small company, but they have fantastic capabilities and helped us to deliver that super important component to have a solution that delivers that user experience that helped us to win 6 clients to date.
Let's get out our crystal ball now. So let's talk about the vision for the future. NSG positions itself as a national leader in the satellite and space sector. Where do you envision the organization in the global space economy over the next 5 years, and particular aligned with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 as a backdrop?
So by 2030, we would like to be perceived not only as the national champion, but also as a emerging yet partially arrived global leader in this space. And you can define that or look at it from a number of different perspectives. The most important one for me is a customer perspective. If the customers in those markets, recognize the capabilities of energy and are a clear advocate of the services that we provide relative to other participants in that market, that is a good sign of being a global leader. That doesn't necessarily mean you're the biggest from a volume perspective. It means that you provide the best customer experience. We got the strongest advocates in that market. A second angle that we can take is an employee market. That if people who aspire to join a fun, competent satellite and space company, that they think of the NEO Space Group, because by that time we will be fairly global, on their list of companies that they want to join. So instead of like now, where not many people know about us, it is a lot more difficult to attract talent than if you are a well-established brand. So we would like to get to the point where people see it as an absolute asset to their resumes if they can say that they work for the NEO Space Group. And the third angle would be more a financial angle. We are backed by a sovereign wealth fund whose job it is also to drive a return on invested capital. And our job is to make sure that return on invested capital is attractive. That doesn't mean that we're going to be deploying the most capital in the world. There are some parties who are clearly orders of magnitude bigger, and it will be difficult to catch up. But what we can do is focus on a good return on that investment. And finally, it's the point that you raised about the national champion here. We will have to be able to demonstrate that we played an important role in building this space ecosystem here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that can be measured in terms of jobs that we have created, partnerships that we've struck, technologies that we have introduced. There are a couple of parameters that help you to find that out. So being an aspiring leader, there's no one way to define it, but hopefully I've brought it to life a little bit.
Interesting to listen to your points, and I can make sure that being on SpaceWatch.Global means that you reached one level already, that you are seen globally. But honestly, you said we will be recognized globally. Does it mean that you will have offices globally that people can join from other countries, in other countries, or just here? What are the plans? So if you can lay them out.
Now, look, I can say two things about it. Firstly, if you are aspiring to become a space company, space is not beholden by national boundaries. So by definition, you are operating across the boundaries of a particular country, especially if you've got assets in space. They just don't stop at the border between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. The assets cover both. So in order to monetize these assets, i.e. get the best possible utilization, you want to serve the customers that are within the reach of those assets. Secondly, space is a scale game. So you need to make sure that you develop a certain volume, scale. And that also goes for being a service provider. So it's great to serve one airline of 6 airlines, but that is probably not enough to get to a good return on investment. So you need to serve many more airlines. And as a consequence, you need to be close to where your customers are physically located. Not every customer is comfortable striking a relationship over a distance. So you will see us setting up offices closer to the markets that we choose to serve. The third angle, I said two, but there's a third angle. If we continue to go down the path of acquisitions, you will see that some of these acquisitions will be outside of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And it's not because we want to be international for the sake of it, but simply because these capabilities are not available in Saudi Arabia today. So we'll have to go overseas. We're not going to lift these companies and then bring them back to Saudi Arabia. The reason why we're buying them is because they're good companies. So keep going, right? But we would like to leverage their technology and enrich the capabilities here in Saudi Arabia.
Martijn Blanken, thank you very much for your time. It was a great pleasure to talk to you, and we will be following the progress you make and hope to get the chance to speak again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you have further questions, reach out to us at radio@SpaceWatch.Global. If you like these or other episodes of Space Café Radio, leave us a rating on your preferred podcast platform. It is the currency of today. And if you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Thorsten Kriening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.